Hey all, this is Redditosker. Today I want to talk about Armored Core 6. There was a recent demo. New footage has been released for public viewing. And many creators were given private access to footage that the rest of us didn't get to see. Their previews went up yesterday and they described, to the best of their understanding, how the game is going to function. Now for me, everything they showed and everything they described looks and sounds phenomenal. I don't know how many games are going to get nominated for Game of the Year, but I do know that Armored Core 6 is definitely going to be one of them. But as I was going around looking at different social internet spaces, I was surprised to find out that there's a significant number of old Armored Core fans that are unhappy with this latest trailer. That's right, a new controversy has just dropped. We're not going to be talking about whether the new Armored Core looks or sounds or is a Souls-like. That's old news, nobody cares about that. We've leapfrogged over that debate entirely. The hot topic of the day is that there is some old fans who think that this game looks entirely too much like Dark Souls. Enough of a Souls-like that too much of what made Armored Core special has been removed to accommodate. Let me read you a few of the more interesting comments, and then afterwards we'll more rationally discuss the issues that they're bringing to the surface. Some of these comments I'm going to shorten down and jump around in them to the more interesting parts because they can get pretty lengthy. This first one says, "The end of an era. My first impression about Armored Core 6 and why I might cancel my order. Armored Core 6 gameplay is basic and no different than Elden Ring if you could fly, with energy being your stamina and missiles being your magic. The gameplay simplification is geared towards Elden Ring fans, not veteran pilots. The way I see Armored Core 6 is that I already own Elden Ring, and if I wanted to play baby Armored Core, I would play Daemon X Machina. The fact that many elements of the game have been withheld from the community this late in release schedule makes me wonder if Armored Core will live up to our expectations. I want to be optimistic, but I also have to be realistic. I love Armored Core, but I never really cared much for Elden Ring series, and so far I don't care for an Elden Ring clone with mechs." Here's another one. "Miyazaki literally doesn't know how to make any other game. It's that simple. What else were we really to expect? If they made anything that wasn't a Souls game at this point and it didn't get top sales, then to them, that would just prove that those ventures weren't worthwhile. I hate to say this, man, but it seems a lot of people are just excited because it's been 10 years. I was excited initially because it had been 10 years, but I wanted my game back. I wanted a game that played like the game I remember. I'm not a huge Dark Souls fan, I don't care about that game enough to care, so I was really hoping that this wasn't going to be just Dark Souls with Jetbusters. And that's really all this is, it's just sci-fi Dark Souls. I assumed they would put some elements from Dark Souls in, but watching the combat it looked more like I was watching a Dark Souls game minus some of the rolling. And let me just present one more, this one's actually my favorite. From Software. Guys, this isn't a Souls game, this is Armored Core. Also from Software, check out the new features. Souls-like healing mechanic, Souls-like stagger, hard lock-on like Souls. You can change your build before a boss, just like Souls. Armored Core 6 is going to be the most easy Armored Core game in history. More easier than 4th gen games, especially when they added those Souls-like mechanics. Because Souls games are the most easiest games ever, only casual normies will find it difficult. Like, the lock-on previous Armored Core games are already fine and they felt like actually controlling a mech. The Souls-like lock-on and the light version of healing Estus Flask is the only way to appease those soul-tards and casual noobs with a lot of basic skill issues. Oh, and also to mention the healing too, it would be nothing wrong if those 3 healing usages were actually a bunch of supply trucks or repair stations just like in Armored Core Silent Line, but nope, it's actually a legitimate mecha version of the Estus Flask. Like if you really want your goo goo gaga baby healing mechanics easy to hit and impossible to miss lock-ons and predictable telegraphed attacks that is good for training just your rusty brain's memorization skills, just go play Souls games or just basically any other game. They don't have to mold Armored Core to become fitting to their casual taste. Okay. I've read a lot of these, and there seems to be a common thread here. The biggest issues for people seem to be the turn speed, the lock-on, and the Estus Flask healing. Turn speed seems to be gone here in this clip. It looks like the mech is turning on a dime without any inertia, or cost, or any slowdown at all. The lock-on's probably the biggest thing that they don't like. It's the one that they compare to Dark Souls most. Like in Dark Souls, the lock-on in Armored Core 6 seems to keep the enemy target in the center of your vision. And the camera and aiming seems to be locked onto him regardless of whether you get behind them or they get behind you. And it greatly diminishes the importance of aiming since you are locked on for most of this. Plus, it's not just the camera, it seems like it autocorrects the actual mech, automatically turning him, when he's not facing the enemy, to face the enemy. And the turns themselves, these auto-correcting turns, look like they're pretty instantaneous, which further reinforces the belief that the turn speed has just been completely gone. And finally, the last thing is the Estus healing. You get 3 repair kits in Armored Core 6, and these can be replenished throughout the level in supply points, and I'm assuming in natural checkpoint areas. This is what Yamamura had to say in an interview. In this work, a repair kit that restores AP during missions is standard equipment. It's a simple recovery item that can be used up to 3 times, but this adds a risk control gameplay. In other words, depending on the situation and the opponent, even if it's at 60% remaining AP, it's not necessarily a safe zone. In the past Armored Core, AP was an index to evaluate continuity of concentration, avoiding being hit as much as possible during the mission until it was over. But in this work, how to perceive risk, repair kits are now used. It's important to judge the situation whether it's okay to use it at this time. So the problem with the Estus healing for the people complaining is that they simply don't want to heal during a mission. They don't like the gameplay that kind of thing promotes. They don't want to feel in danger when there's 60% of their HP remaining. They want the gameplay balanced around the only recourse for them is to just play the mission better. And in fact, it's actually worse for them because it's not actually an Estus heal. Because an Estus heal is a risk-reward mechanism. Heals aren't free with an Estus. You can't just push the button in the middle of a fight and get fully healed immediately. If you try and heal at the wrong time, you can lose more HP than you healed or even die. But according to the people that had access to the previews, that's not how it works. The repair works immediately. It's instant, it's free, it's not even an Estus heal. And I think the problem people are having is that it sets a different tone to the gameplay than they were looking for from their Armored Core. Now, there are other more minor issues that I hear people talking about, but these are the ones that I hear consensus on. And there's 2 things I want to say about this. First of all, I don't care. Armored Core 6 looks great to me, and I'm usually on the losing side in these kinds of debates. I'm always getting myself into the middle of these kinds of arguments, where there's a change in a series and a lot of people don't like the change and there's a split in the community. And usually when that happens, I'm on the losing team. I'm in the minority position. I'm on the side whose toy has been taken away from them. And this time I'm not. I'm on the winning team. I'm on the majority position. I'm on the side that thinks everything they see looks great. And it feels wonderful over here. I should be on this side more often. Even if these people are right and Armored Core changes and the changes are so severe that it's the end of an era, I don't care. Armored Core is dead. Long live Armored Core. But on a more positive note, the second thing I wanted to say is, I think we're overestimating how much we know about how this game is going to work. I'm not convinced that we're making correct assumptions on a lot of these things. For example, for the lock-on, we know that there is a fire control system part in the mech. You can see it in the hangar. And I find it hard to believe that the lock-on is going to be a perfect lock-on that works in all circumstances, at all ranges, at all times, leaving this fire control system redundant. And I'm also not convinced that the turning speed is gone entirely. It does seem to be gone in this one clip where he's not flying and there's no combat happening. But there was a post on Reddit that showed that the turning speed from getting behind an enemy from the medium mech to the light mech seemed to be faster for the light mech by a few frames. Which might imply that different weight classes and equipment that you put on the mech will determine how fast you turn to face your enemy, even if the lock-on does work the way a lot of these people fear. And as for the Estus healing, maybe that sounds bad, but you don't know actually how the game is going to run. You don't have it in your hands. You haven't seen enough gameplay in enough context or how long these missions are going to be to know really if that's something you're going to dislike. So I just think it's a little early to despair if you don't like what you see, because these systems might not work the way that you're assuming, and even if they do work the way that you're assuming, it's from software. Maybe they implemented them in a way that you do like. So I think the assumptions here are just premature. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Please unsubscribe and unclick the bell notification. If you are one of these angry Armored Core fans that think that too much Souls has been injected into your beloved franchise, then please be sure to tell my Souls audience how easy their games are. And if you're a Souls fan or you just like what you see in the Armored Core trailers, I'd appreciate if you reminded those Armored Core boomers that you are happy that they are sad. And if my video hasn't been enough to alienate either of you, then I'm sure I'll get to you in a future video. Until then, thank you very much for watching.